Hi, I'm Vinnie with Veloso Publishing, and I'm here with Jeffrey Veatch, author of The Dyer Island Boys. Welcome, Jeffrey.
Well, it's great to be with you, and I love what you do at Veloso.
Thank you. So we have lots of questions for you today. So how long have you got for us? Because I got a lot.
Well, let's see. I'm kind of retired except for writing, so I guess I can spend the day here.
Okay. So this is one of those stories that was based off a true story. So why don't we start with that and talk about your experience with the island and how that all came about, and then we'll transition on how did that make it into the book.
That sounds good. I can start and just by telling you how I get connected. In the 80s, before my wife and I were married, her mother, now my mother-in-law, worked at a summer camp off the coast of Maine. And so we went up, we were going to Acadia Park to hike, and we decided to spend the day to go over to this camp. And I was pretty impressed with it, but I was bewildered because it seemed like the kids were running the camp and I didn't see any adults. It's like, is this Lord of the Flies or what? But it turns out everything was running smoothly. We got a boat ride. The boy was the pilot, and we got a tour, and we ended up at the infirmary where my soon-to-be wife's mother was the nurse on the island. So we got to know the island, and we got to know the two doctors who had founded the whole idea back in the 40s. And we considered them family friends. So we would make trips up to Maine. Every time we would go up there, we would visit the camp. And the more I learned about it, this was actually the real campers, or the real organization is the Berwick Boys Foundation, which still exists. Every time we went up there, we were more impressed about what they were doing and got to know them more. And I went up there later with video equipment to do a documentary, and spent a lot of time interviewing the original one of the original doctors and his wife, who's also a physician, and a bunch of the kids and the counselors and all that. I had it all transcribed. We were working on a documentary, but we never got funded. So I decided, well, maybe I can write a screenplay. So, that one thing led to another, and I spent this time, writing about the camp.
Okay, so that experience and that potential screenplay actually turned into this book.
That's correct.
Okay.
And the screenplay still exists, but it's not, it's not been grabbed by any producer. It may be because of the budget, and also it's hard to get a film made.
Really?
But the story is real, but I had to create characters, and of course names have been changed mostly, but not all completely. But the story, and how people tied together was fiction earlier on. And as I got further along in the story, things became more real as, the really what happened.
They're based on real characters. A lot of the characters are based on real people. Okay.
And in fact, my mother-in-law is a character in the book. She has a cameo. She's the nurse.
My mother-in-law, a house fell on her and her feet were stuck on. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so we're at the point where we made this. You came to me with this book. I loved it. I thought it was a great idea. And then we had to start putting pieces together to kind of figure out the presentation. And I think this is part of something I found interesting. I think the people listening and watching will too. Everything that we do is custom. And the more I can be involved in a collaborative process, and someone like Jeffrey Veatch is perfect because he sort of has an artistic brain, and we really, really got into it. And instead of using bullets or little spacers between paragraphs, we used buoys, right? Which is, we found a small graphic, and I had to fix them here and there, and then there was we had some anchors and some other little things.
Compass.
Oh, the compass, right. The compass is cool.
Yeah.
So we really spend some time carefully picking those because they have to translate and work small because they're going in small.
Yeah.
And we did some stuff at a ghosted back percentage, opacity lowered. it's really, really handsome on the inside.
I loved it. I know you had to make adjustments, and you were willing to do that, to go back to the drawing board. And I just love the layout of the book, especially the ebook. And it's just great. And the collection of photos in the back is very, very special, because some of them are us, some of them are very old, photos from the 40s.
Yeah.
And it got an amazing look. And you designed a cover, and I get compliments on the cover to this day.
Well, let's talk real quick about the cover. So you had sent me a picture of kids on sort of a little offshore island, and it was a very low resolution photo. And so I was kind of figuring out how I could work with this, but by turning it into more of a silhouette with colors and things, I was able to kind of preserve what that was. And it was one of those things where I was so frustrated because I was trying to get the original photo to look good. And once I abandoned that, then we came up with the thing that I think is far superior and works small, because that's a big deal these days, that books have to look good small because they're seeing them on a teeny tiny for sale thing on Amazon or Barnes and Noble. So I think we won on the exterior and the interior. Even after looking at it again, I'm very happy with it, and that's only because we had a good collaborative process. I don't think I could have done that with somebody else.
It was great, and that was actually, the boys were on a barge loaded with stone. You couldn't even see the barge because the stone was so heavy, it was almost submerged, and they were loading these stones into cages when they got to the shore. Anyway, but it looks just wonderful.
We just made adjustments for the ebook and stuff, but there's one thing that we did, and Jeffrey is the first person to do this. He actually came with the idea, and it stems out of the fact that, if you haven't noticed by now, he has a wonderful speaking voice. It almost sounds like radio. I'm Jeffrey Veatch, and
my background.
Yeah.
So it's excellent. So he said, I'd like to do an audiobook. And, oh man, okay, well, we haven't done one. Let's take a shot at it. And he said, well, I want to read it. And I said, okay. And when he sent over the recordings, he decided, he's got good enough equipment, so he recorded it himself and sent them to me, and I was shocked. Like, it's really, really, really well done. I didn't have to do much to the recordings at all, just kind of get them leveled and compliant for Audible specs. But so that's the first Velossal audiobook, and he was able to read it himself. So it's kind of exciting. We've done another audiobook, but we had a higher speaker.
Well, most do that. Most do that.
Yeah.
And it's a whole industry developing right now. I enjoyed that. I really did. And, I would record chapter, and then I would, maybe I would edit it later, and I would do two or three a day, and it worked out pretty well. And then you kind of refined it, because even though I thought I had a dead room, there was a little echo in the room.
Yeah, so it's just a little massaging here and there. That's very, very, like I said, I've had stuff that needs a lot of work, but this was good. I just like the way it came out, and I like the way his voice is. So book and the audio book and the ebook, we did all those. And have you done any speaking engagements?
I did a reading and signing not too long ago. There's a cafe in our town called Libri, and they have authors. They invite authors to come, and they buy their books, and they put them in the shelves. And now they're doing podcast interviews. So I did one a few weeks ago, and that was very nice. And I was up in Bar Harbor, Maine, a couple of summers ago, and I did a signing there. And the book sold pretty well up there, but they didn't have enough room to do a reading, so I didn't do a reading there. But I've made a few minor appearances with the book.
You have a bookstore in Maine that's been very helpful to you.
Sherman's. I think they have 11 stores in Maine. Sherman's Coastal Bookstore, I think they call it.
Okay, we need to give them a shout out, because they've been very good to you.
They have.
And I think it fits. It's the book's about Maine, and it fits. But so did you do a signing there as well?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Okay.
And it was and we sold a bunch of books there. And they have some books on consignment, which is good to know, because I can tell people you can always pick it up at Sherman's.
But this goes back to what I tell everyone, which is you have to go and do these readings and signings because people aren't necessarily buying the book. They're buying you, especially when it's a story. Now, if you have a book, a how-to book, how to, install a refrigerator or change out a hard drive, then they're buying the information. But when it comes to a story or something that has a personality, you have to sell you. And nothing does it better than you going and doing a signing. And people, they may have just happened into the bookstore or they came because they're kind of curious or they know you or whatever. But being in there in that moment, meeting the author, listening to them, enjoying them, and getting them to sign it. There's always something really cool about getting them to sign it. So I'm glad that you did that. You also have a great personality for this. Some people maybe shouldn't go and meet the public, but yeah, I thought this was a good match, and obviously you've done well. So do you have plans to do some more?
Yes, I could do better. I honestly admit I can do better, and I'd like to reach out more and get to more events and more stores, and that's my project now.
So I wanted to ask you about your son, Justin, his whole story and his music and how it led you to public speaking and the Justin Veatch Fund.
Well, our son, Justin, was very talented. I mean, he just grew up and grew into music, and we knew that was going to be his thing. And he had a lot of talent he took piano lessons when he was 6 years old.
Plus, he had a father who's a musician.
Well, so to speak. I mean, I was a drummer, but I did play baritone horn in school, played a little trumpet. But he was just amazing because I gave him software. I gave him, I could never say no. Never say no. I mean, I just sold after all this time one of his orange Rockerberg 50 orange head and a Marshall cab because we have no use for it. But we wanted to get more money for our scholarship, so we decided to sell them and add it to our scholarship fund. But I have a Martin guitar of his. I've got a Telecaster right behind me on the wall. And but anyway, he was an amazing young man. I gave him software. We did this stuff. It was just, he was so creative, but also he kind of fell into a trap when he was in about 15, smoking marijuana with his friends, and we battled over that. We didn't want him to do that, and we thought we got it under control. He had counseling, all kinds of things like that. But it just got, out of control at one point in time in his life when he was 17. So September 8th, 2008 was to be Justin's the first day of the first full week as a senior at Yorktown High School. It was 6:20 in the morning. I can remember these images now. His mother and sister were making breakfast, and I was driving to work. It was in the city. And I had my cell phone with me, but it was on vibrate. I think we went to a film the night before. I had it off. So they were making breakfast, his mother and his sister, and then Justin's alarm was droning on and on and on, and she went to check on him. And then there was a desperate call to paramedics. And that call ended in what I would call a parent's worst nightmare, because our son Justin, who we hoped would fill venues with music fans, had died. Acute drug intoxication were the words used later by the medical examiner to describe Justin's cause of death. Acute drug intoxication. I tell kids in my talks, I put it a different way. Our son died 10 feet away from our bed in the neighboring bedroom, and we didn't have a clue that he was in trouble.
What was the substance? Was it multiple or one or?
We found out later that he had snorted heroin. Okay. And he had been experimenting with other drugs that we didn't know about. There's no do-over, of course. And we don't know if there was fentanyl mixed in. We don't know how he got it. But he was out with some people we didn't know that Sunday and came home, seemed to be okay, but a little, tired or what have you. But he did his homework, had a meal, went to bed, and never woke up. So, unimaginable experience for parents. And this was in 2008. There was more of a stigma attached to this. this was thought of as more of an inner city problem with, gangs and what have you. We decided we had to make a decision. We decided we would talk about it and try to figure out what happened. We would go public as best we could to talk about what happened to Justin and try to figure out how a good student like Justin, a talented musician, how this could happen to him. And we wanted to see if there's anything we could do, and we created a nonprofit to create music scholarships because Justin had recorded a bunch of songs. He had some in the mill writing. He had recorded 6 songs professionally. He was on the verge of doing his first album. And we also wanted the world to know about his music. So these were good recordings. So we decided, we would try to figure out a way to get other artists who he admired to cover some of his songs. And I ended up reaching out to a bunch of people. Sometimes I couldn't get through the gatekeeper. But I reached, first of all, Mike Kinsella, who lives in Chicago, and he tours solo as Owen. He also is the front man for a band called American Football, which tours around the world. And he heard Justin's music, and he got back to me and said, I'm listening to his music. He's doing exactly what I was doing when I was 17, and I feel so bad for you. I feel terrible. I said, I want to recover. I want to do one of his songs. So he picked one out and recorded that. As word got out about our efforts, we got a message from a band in Toronto, Canada called Boys Night Out. I don't know who they were. I mean, I didn't know who they were at the time, but they turned out to be, have a million fans, and they were pretty big. Kind of hard rock music, and I found out later that it was one of Justin's favorite bands for a while. So they agreed to cover one of his songs, and one thing led to another. We ended up with an album of 13 tracks, 6 originals and covers, and it's called Permagrin. That's the name he chose. Permagrin, the music of Justin Veatch and Friends, and it's available. Polyvinyl Records picked it up to distribute, and it's been out there for a long time. They don't handle the CD anymore, but it's out there in the world, and it's online. You can find it. So that, and then it took me a long time to do this, Vinnie. I was my brother-in-law booked speakers in schools and in theaters and things like that, and he said, "You got to do something. You've got a radio voice. You can talk to people. Why don't you do a talk?" And I said, I don't know where to begin. So I began going through all the photographs, and his mother was just so upset. I couldn't even approach the subject. I couldn't show her anything I was doing, and I kept working at it and working at it. I would get these photos into the computer and began to work on a talk, and began refining it with video clips and photos and interviews and things like that. And I came up with a talk called A Message from Justin, and it was it developed over time. I had one of the producers of the film Whispering Spirits took it over and redid all the graphics for me later on. So it's a 45-minute talk. I haven't been doing it that much lately, but I've got a couple bookings in middle schools in New Jersey in May, and I hopefully will be out there more often. But it kind of ran its course, and then COVID came. COVID came, and they weren't doing talks in schools. They weren't even holding school sessions, the same way. So it ran a lot, and I spoke to many thousands of kids up and down the East Coast, as far south as Atlanta, as far west as Grand Rapids, Michigan. So I'm happy we were able to do that, because the message was to change the culture of young people to take better care of themselves, but more importantly, just as important, is to watch out for their friends, because I tell them, you know more about your friends than their parents do. You know what's going on all, in and out every day. And when they're experimenting with substances, you know it before anybody else, before the teachers. And you're the one who could truly play the role of saving a life. And I'm glad I made that message. And we were really thrilled that we were able to have that film made. We didn't have it made. A couple of young filmmakers approached us, and it took them 2.5 years to finish. But they also had all the resources, the Jacob Burns Film Center. Even Jonathan Demme, the famous director, before he died, advised them on how to improve, the documentary. It's a 27-minute piece, and we use it in schools. We have a discussion guide that goes with it. Anybody can go into the website, the whispering-spirits.com, and they can watch the film, download it. They can get 2 different versions of the discussion guide, one for the classroom. There's a shorter clip of the film for the classroom, and one for community meetings. And so we're very happy it's out there, and it's actually gotten out from coast to coast. There are groups that have used it in community meetings and schools. And then we developed the scholarship program, and it took us a little time, but 10 months after he died, we awarded the first scholarship.
Let me do the bragging for you, because this scholarship fund, the Justin Veatch Fund, and I'll put the URL on the screen, is incredible. They are really facilitating young people actually pursuing music. There's not a lot of that out there. It's not you can just go anywhere and get funding to pursue your musical education or whatever. So how many scholarships do you think you've given out total?
We've given out 79, and we're having a harder time fundraising now, but we'll see how we are next year. But we may cut back a little bit, but that may just be temporary. We want to continue this, and we're determined to do it. These kids when we make it very special for them, because they have to work for this. This is not a gimme thing. They have to write an essay. They have to tell us about their talents, and talk about community service and all these little things, good things that young people should do, and what they want to do with their future. And we give them a nice little award. I got a picture of the award. I don't know if you could see it, but it's, I don't know, does this appear on screen? It's a working metronome, and it's a German-made one, and it's a really nice one, and it's engraved with their name and any sponsor we have. And I'm sure, in addition to the check, it's not, they love the check, but I think they also like to have this memento, which they can, have for the rest of their lives.
Of course. And the ceremonies are cool, and you can go see these on the justinveatchfund.org, where you could watch literally videos of speakers and performances, some really cool performances. So it's not just, you're right, it's not just here's the check. You've really turned it into something really special. And if you get a chance, please go look at it, because they're really cool.
But the scholarships are very important to us. And my talk, if I can continue doing that talk, that will be wonderful, because it's a very cathartic thing for me. Even though Justin passed almost 18 years ago, it's still very, very raw inside me. And I constantly think about what we can do to help other kids. And it makes you feel good if you reach somebody. But in the talks that I've done in schools, wow, a lot of times after the talk, young people would come up to talk to me, to tell me their story. And their stories, wow, their stories were so touching.
How is it possible to go from basically the worst tragedy you could imagine? There's lots of tragedies, but this is top of the list. How do you go from that to move forward, not only just move forward with your daily life, to get out of bed each day, to go to work, to eat, to even, getting out of bed and taking a shower is hard enough when something like that happens. How do you turn it into this whole presentation and nonprofit? Not everybody that this happens to goes this far. Why? How did you do this?
Well, that's a good question, and I don't know if I have the greatest answer, but one thing leads to another. When something bad happens to you, there's no real answer to it, but the one thing that you can do is to be of service to others. And volunteering, for example, is one of the greatest things you can do to increase your productivity for your own stuff, to help the world, to change your attitude. I'm a changed person since I lost our son. I have much more patience for people. I'm much more caring. I try never to get angry at anybody. It's not easy, but I mean, to me, we have to accept things. That's the other thing that I talked about. I was asked to talk about that. You can't ever say we should have, we could have. You can't never do that. But you have to approach things in a different way and accept what happened. The very first thing you have to do is accept it. It happened. Why me? Why me? Well, that doesn't do you any good. Why us? Why not us? So that was kind of the attitude we took at the time. And we decided, we would just talk about it. And we actually were approached. We had a publicist for a short period of time and got a gig on Good Morning America. They did a 6-minute piece. And it was very cathartic for me to be involved in that, and for my wife too, and for our daughter, who, telling his story and talking about what happened, and then talking about, his music and all that, and trying to share that was the greatest thing, because I wanted to make Justin famous for the right reasons. He didn't have time. He made a mistake. He knows he made a mistake, but, he can't be here to tell us about it. It's up to us to see what we can do to make it, make his life worthwhile. I really believe that, and I believe that it's part of what we need to do. It's part of our duty, but it also helps us. It makes us better people. It helps make us feel better. And this thing goes on, and I know people who started a foundation and they did it for a few years and then they stopped, and they did the right thing by doing it, but they stopped. And why did they stop? I don't know, but I think it's a burden, and it's not easy to do all the time. And you have a foundation too. You're doing this work.
Exactly.
So it's a wonderful thing. How does that make you feel?
There's two kind of performers. The performer who gets on stage and says, look at me, look at the talent that I have. I'm really good at this. And juggling, playing the guitar, whatever they do. And it comes from a place of ego. Then there is the performer who gets on stage and says, how can I entertain you? What can I do to make you have fun and have a good time? And that's always been the type of entertainer that I am. Wow. And when you're able to achieve that, so I don't need people to come up to me after a show and say, you were great. I know if I was good or not. I know if it went well. I know if there was mistakes. I just want to hear you had fun. So what I'm saying is, when I get off stage and everyone's had fun, and I've had lots of concerts. I had one up Northern California where I had 500 people who didn't know who I was. It was a summer concert. They didn't know me from a blade of grass, but I had them, and by the end of the night, I had all 500 up dancing and going crazy. And that feeling is undescribable. And better than sex, way better than sex. It's just the best feeling ever. So when I do these events for the kids with disabilities, I can only say it's similar to that. When you see those kids having a good time or learning, or that little bell, like two things connect in their head, like, oh, or you see them make friends, dealing with the autistic kids where they have such a hard time making friends and hard times communicating, to then make a friend. It's magic. And I leave there just like a show, exhausted. My wife and I sometimes go home and go right to sleep, but we feel like $1 million. And I can only imagine it's the same thing for you to do that. And when kids come up and tell you their stories after one of your talks, or they come up and say, thank you for the scholarship. I mean, it's just so much love and joy and positive things you're putting out into the world. And I guess it's one of the reasons why you and I connect, because you're doing that. And I admire it. But I'm not coming from a tragedy. I just decided to do it because I like doing it.
And isn't that great? But
that's what I'm saying. I just see someone like you and I go, how the hell? How does he go from that? And it's just, it's incredibly impressive, and that you didn't turn this into a horrible, negative thing. You guys stayed together as a family, because that doesn't always happen.
It wasn't easy.
No, I'm not. I'm not even suggesting it's easy. I'm suggesting that it's unbelievably difficult, and that you are a remarkable individual for being able to go this far with it. Wow.
It's I hear what you're saying, and it's I don't know, it's just natural. Some people are more natural at it than others. I know Mark Barton, for example, lost his son Daniel in the Sandy Hook shootings. 6-year-old kid and wonderful young boy, and he's a musician too. He plays guitar. He's played with a lot of famous people, and he created he co-founded Sandy Hook Promise, which does programs in schools all across the country, getting kids to change their attitude toward each other. That lone kid who never has anybody to say hello to needs attention. It gets out of control. They're so alone for so long. And he turned it around. He said he's not so angry. It's not about just the guns. It's about the attitude of dealing with other people, and that's what Sandy Hook Promise does. And I guarantee you, they're doing the same thing, and in fact, they help us out too. They acknowledge the Justin Veatch Fund, and they've donated to us. I've donated to them. It's an amazing thing doing this good work. Acts of kindness are very powerful. That's all I can say, really.
Yeah, and this is what I go back to again with your book, that you are an extraordinary individual. You know, when we got on the phone for the first time, I liked you right away. I went, this guy's remarkable. And I don't even think in the first conversation I knew about Justin. I just knew about, your radio days, and you were just fun. And, we just hit it off. And when I took a look at the book, I was like, oh, this is great. And this goes back to what I was originally saying at the beginning of this interview, that if you're interesting and likable, then you're more apt to sell a book to somebody because they're interested in you and they like you already. And I'm telling you, if you're liking anything about this guy in this interview, you will love this book because his personality comes through in this book.
Well, that's good advice, and I have not done a great job getting out there. And I'd like to do a better job. Maybe I need a kick in the butt, but my brother-in-law did. He said, you've got to do a talk about Justin.
So moving forward, let's try to get a reading together with you and maybe Kathy and Kyle in New York, because, again, those are important. And then I have an idea for you to come to California. Picture this, Veatch on the Beach, where you do readings at nudist beaches all up and down the coast. You'll be fine naked, right? You'll be okay. Hey, look, if it sells books,
I might have a little insecurity there, but I would. But I'd love to go to California and see you. When we get out there, I definitely want to make a point to get together if we can.
Oh yeah, it'll be fun to see you.
I feel like I should have done a much better job with this book. I think I've tried, but I
wouldn't have published it because I don't publish a lot every year. I'm careful. And if I didn't think it was good, I wouldn't have done it. And if I didn't enjoy you as a person, I wouldn't have done it.
I appreciate that, especially when you responded after, I sent you the information about the book. I said, I don't know what to expect. Was he going to like it? When you said, it's solid, I felt so great.
You found me through Bob Buchanan? Is that how you found me?
That's right. He said, I'll introduce you to him. I'll give you his number. And he said, if he likes you, he might do something for you. And he said a lot of good things about you. Yeah, but he said, if he likes you, it's a great connection.
And I enjoy Bob. I have at least a phone call a month or so with him, just because he's such a kick in the head and has, we differ on so many things, but we get along so well. And
everybody wants the same thing. Even though we disagree on the means.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. It's a great way to put it. And he's just a fun person, and his books are great. He's in New York as well, right?
He's in my town.
Oh, come on. We got to get... don't you get it? He's the comic relief. You got to... Because you You and Kathy
We
and
should talk about
Kyle,
it.
you're all so serious, and then you bring this guy in, and oh my God, yeah, he's like, he's, you know, when they always have those movies where there's four characters and the one guy's the comic relief. That's him. All right, now I'm on a mission.
So think about it. Yes, and I'm on board.
All right, hey, all we got to do is we just got to grease the right bookstore that can certainly, because we want to be able to have a good turnout. So I love this idea. I'm glad it came up in this conversation. I've certainly enjoyed this interview. I always enjoy talking to you, and I love the
Likewise.
work you do. Jeffrey Veatch, ladies and gentlemen, the book is called The Dyer Island Boys. It is available everywhere, ebook, physical copies, and audiobook read by the author himself. Jeffrey Veatch, thank you for being with us. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you very much, Vinnie. Appreciate it.